Let's get started. So full moon energy, accidents like we were just talking about with my mom, and even with Kelly's going back for tests and ER visits, those kinds of things are common around the full moon. A lot of nurses and police officers will tell you that. But it's also, there's a lot of good mojo around this full moon that's still kind of with us. But I wanted to check in with any of you. Do you feel like there's been, also because of this transit that's happening today, has there been any news that's come your way, or like anything that's been illuminated? Any new stuff? Not really. Conversation?
I won't like get too specific, but like I just had a lot of stuff that came up on my trip. And so like these past couple days I've been completely like worthless. And I think it's just like processing it. And like the first few days of my trip, I was in Washington, D.C. and I was like walking everywhere. I walked like 10 miles a day. So it's not, but the next part of my trip, I was at Kripalu and just like not doing all of that. So I don't think it's like I'm tired. It's just, I think like there's just a lot of stuff that came up. And so I was assisting my yoga teacher at the yoga recovery conference. So he's really involved in yoga 12 steps and things like that. And he came to yoga through recovery. Well, my dad had an addiction and passed away from it. And so like, this was the first time I ever went to this event. And it was just really amazing. Like it was a lot of good stuff. Like stuff came up, like it wasn't sad or anything. It was just like, realization. So that's been coming up for me.
Yeah. I feel like we've had a lot of those, just Greg and I in the family arena, enlightening conversations, and news like that. Nothing earth shattering, but just a lot of things have been illuminated. And also, this Jupiter conjunction with the North Node has been going on for a couple of days and is kind of aligning with the full moon for a couple more days. And this is all about expansion and news and communication and also life purpose. Those of you who've been in my classes before might remember that a little bit about the North Node is that it's about, we have a North Node and a South Node in our chart. And the North Node is where we're headed. That's our life purpose. The South Node is where we've been. It's our karmic past. If you believe in past lives, it also represents past lives, but it's also our past in general. And the North Node represents where we're going. And when the North Node is conjunct Jupiter, all of those issues like life purpose issues are illuminated. Am I, like maybe for Emily being at that retreat with her mentor and having all these realizations, maybe guided her a little more towards her life purpose, like some illumination of, oh, wow, I want to be doing more or less of this. And that's kind of what's to be expected from the last couple of days to, I would say, Tuesday, these feelings of wanting to align a little better with where we're going and what our purpose is and our destiny. I will be doing a North Node class soon because I think it's really important to know where that placement is and where it's moving in your chart, because it can really show career moves and things and timing around those. But a lot of that's heightened. And with that Jupiter North Node conjunction, we also have Saturn trining it, which is really unusual to have the planet of commitment and discipline supporting this kind of lucky benevolent influence. So it's saying, I want to help you build what that looks like. So the word that comes to my mind is manifestation, because it's kind of like our dreams getting structure, right? Getting materialized. So to me, even though we're not at a new moon, which is usually the time we talk about intentions and new ideas, because of this conjunction right now with the illuminating full moon, it's time to really be open to the messages you're getting right now around your career and purpose. And also even decisions around relationships, because there could be some of you where Jupiter or the North Node is hitting the 7th house, or areas where relationships are more the focus rather than, say, career. and where you're headed with those. So that's kind of going on right now. You know, the full moon's in Sag, so it's all about adventure and expansion, and it's Jupiter ruled. And starting out the month of June with that kind of benevolent, they call Jupiter benefic and benevolent because it brings positivity and warmth and openness. We start out that way this month. And then today we have Mercury conjunct Uranus, which is a big time for new ideas and communication. And right away into Monday, Venus goes into Leo. And it hasn't been there for over a year, maybe 18 months. When Venus enters Leo, we are even more aligned with what makes us happy. You know, Leo rules the heart. It rules center stage. Where do you want to take center stage in your life? What is your purpose? And Leo also kind of amps up our amorous life, romance, the desire to bond passionately with other people or with ideas. So Venus will be in Leo for, I think it's at least till October, that we're going to be having this kind of really nice, warm, you know, Leo being also the sign that rules creativity and travel and connection through the arts and theater. It's a fifth house energy. So that we roll right into that on Monday. The only kind of iffy thing here on Monday and Tuesday is when Venus moves into Leo, it's going to be opposing Pluto. So just from what you guys know, what would you think Venus opposing Pluto, the planet of transformation, would bring to us? Are there any guesses? I'm going to see if you guys have been listening. Are you retaining your information? So if we've got Venus, which is the planet of love, beauty, relationships, friendships.
So change in relationships.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. And Pluto represents power. So there's going to be some power struggles in the next couple days if they haven't started already. Ours kind of reared its head within the last week. Just power struggles in relationships. There was a really intense one between my son and daughter, and other kids and issues that were coming up. A lot of family stuff where people were almost vying for their power and their place in the family and their voice. And sometimes it can come out, and this is with adults too, or people at work or in love relationships. Sometimes it can come out like a tantrum, you know, very childish and very intense and full of emotion and bursting into tears, or just it's very powerful. So it's hard for some people to express, and everybody's going to do that a little differently. But when Venus is in this kind of position with Pluto, and then Venus being in Leo, which is very dramatic, we can get some dramatic confrontations or dramatic outbursts. So I've seen it quite a bit, but the interesting thing is that Pluto rules transformation, right? So after every one of these really intense conversations that we've had, there was great healing that happened after it. You know, we had to really sit and talk through some things. But it was almost like a dam broke, and then you can work on being calm, and after the freak out, after the tantrum, after the tears, sit and heal through that. And sometimes that takes more than just one day. But so Pluto, even though it's about power, control, and tantrums and all of that, there's a reason this eruption happens, because it's been building. It's like a volcano. It's been building for maybe days, weeks, months, years. And then it gets this opportunity to kind of explode. And then it's almost like the Tower card in tarot. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. And I did draw that this week. I just remembered. But the Tower card is all around about this explosion of the tower crumbling down. And then it gets to be rebuilt in a different way. And so, you know, when Pluto is involved, that tends to be kind of that Tower or tarot energy. Has anyone had anything like that yet this week? Any intense?
I think I'm the one throwing the tantrum.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Cool. Good
Yeah,
self-awareness.
I still need my children to get their lives together and make better choices and
Mhm.
communicate better. And I'm the one throwing a tantrum about that. So,
Yep.
so it's me. I'm the one kicking and screaming.
Yeah. We have a term for that, that actually our therapist kind of gave us, and we've had to do that here and there as well. We call it jerk their chain. You know, you think of,
Okay.
I know it's an old, maybe slightly abusive method of training dogs, but you know, the choke collar, right? Sometimes you have to do this quick, and you have to do this burst of aggression and intensity because nobody's listening.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's what they need, is to get the chain jerked. Yeah.
But, you know, I find that I've had the same issue. I want to be the one throwing the tantrum, but what I find myself doing is just, fine, I'm just out. I'm just out. I'm not gonna even put myself in that position. I'm just out.
Mhm. So would you call that the fight or flight, and you're flighting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fleeing.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I know, because that's my natural response, is the flight. You know, I didn't grow up in a family where they communicated well. It usually was buried and then a smile put on it kind of deal. We didn't really hash out stuff. And so a lot of times it was just easier just to walk away or get away or get myself out of the thing. You know, and I think that can work for our whole lifetime. You know, and that's kind of, I mean, it can if we want it to. And then sometimes if we aren't jerking any chains, then it just repeats forever and ever. And if we're okay with that, you know, just constantly repeating ourselves.
That's where we are, I think, is what's happening is we've the cycle of is this going to matter? Do we really need to like blow this up? Is it that way? Do we just walk away because you can't change people? Like we have a cycle of that because, you know, just families and people are just different personalities. So that's what I think is happening is we have a cycle of that, and we've taught our children have seen that, and now it's coming back where I'm just like, okay, we taught you wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, wait, that was actually, I know that's what you've watched, that's what you've witnessed, but we were wrong.
Yeah.
That's not going to work anymore. We can't do that anymore. We can't just walk away from it anymore. We can't, that's not going to work for me anymore. So that's where we are, is just trying to break that cycle to even if the result is the same. I don't want anyone to, because I feel like we as women especially hold things back, right? And don't really, you know, don't throw tantrums enough,
Right.
maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
and then it just comes to this place where you I don't know, I just think it changes something inside when you're holding all that in, right? So trying to change that cycle. So that's not going to be resolved anytime soon. So it's not going to be a blow up and fix, but maybe a blow up and move in a different direction. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
And speaking of the tantrums, when you change a generational pattern, even if it's just one generation, two, these tantrums start coming out at odd times, because people, even when the change is for the better, people just, especially kids, when they've been in a certain dynamic and they think they want different or better, they still will throw their fit. It's just, that's what we're seeing too. And also that kids go through this strange, when you have multiple, I think sometimes, or just not just kids, our parents go through this kind of vying for power. Where am I now? You know, do I still have power in this family? Do I still have voice? I'm going to rebel to see if you still love me. I'm going to test your love. All of that's kind of part of
Mhm.
it, especially when you start trying to change some things. So I hear you, and you're right. It's not an overnight change. I feel like the one that happened between my son and daughter this week was a long time coming. And it wasn't anything horrible. It was just they both acted out at each other and were just kind of cruel to each other. And resetting that of no, that's not how you can have all the problems with you want, but you don't use that name and you don't do this. And it ended up being like an hour and a half conversation where they both just wept, you know, and there was a million other things on their mind, a million other. That was just how it was coming out, you know, and it was extremely healing, but that's still going to take work. Does that make sense? Like, it's not just like, oh, we're all great.
Yeah.
They're growing, they're getting older, they're turning into adults. And, you know, our therapist has also said, Fran, that from 20 to 30, they're just hot wrecks.
Oh yeah.
You know,
We're approaching the end. Like it's, yeah. I'll be glad when the 20s are done.
yeah. We were
Yeah.
so naive when we thought that, oh, when they turn 18, it's all.
And when and yeah, it's just starting. I feel like that's just starting because you have zero control. But I look back and I think, God, this is what like I was clearly I was like this too. Like how annoying for my parents.
I know. I know. And we know they'll all feel it from their 20 something someday.
Oh God.
So anyway, so that's kind of how we kick off our month this month with the full moon and the Venus going into a really fun sign. But it's like, but first, before I let you get to the fun part, let's blow everything up for a little bit and then let you have fun this summer. So that's kind of where we are. The moon's in Capricorn. So Monday and Tuesday will be a good day for work, doing your bills, setting a budget, money talks, those kinds of things for Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday and Thursday, there's not much going on. I'm going to do the share screen. I just realized I wasn't sharing. I was just talking. Okay. So we're over here on the 6th, 7th, 8th. Not a whole lot going on. Moon goes into Aquarius on the 7th and 8th. And that's just a time, kind of a lighthearted time. Aquarius rules friendship and good time for those kinds of relationships. And then we move into the end of the week, a lot more going on again with Mercury and Venus. So we'll head into Pisces and Aries. Pisces on Friday and Saturday. We have Mercury sextiling Neptune. So that is listen and speak from the heart. So Mercury is about communication, how we speak, how we write, how we communicate. And that's in a good relationship with Neptune, which is very empathetic and represents our dreams, our intuition. This is also a time to really, Friday night and Saturday night, really pay attention to your dreams. And I don't know if any of you have ever done this exercise. I read this dream book years ago that encouraged you to, before you go to bed, and if you have something on your mind that you want some answers to actually ask. I ask that I receive some messages when I dream tonight, when I sleep tonight. Because a lot of times, you know, our consciousness is constantly editing us all day long. And sometimes when that's stripped away and our subconscious can just play and express itself at night, we can get really clear messages. And sometimes they're just feelings. You know, if you have a lot of anger in the dream or a feeling of betrayal, those kinds of things are very informative. It's kind of what your body is feeling and going through or needing to heal. So Pisces, when the moon is in Pisces, it's always a good time to really think about your dreams and pay attention and dream journal if you want to. But it's also a time when your intuition is heightened during the day. So you may get more input from spirit. You may get more ideas. And especially when Mercury is sextiling Neptune, Neptune rules Pisces. So it's like a double Piscean influence for kind of like the 8th through 10th. Then we move into Venus square Jupiter. Even though it's a square and represents friction, it's still a time of major growth and optimism, because both of those planets are so benefic, and really the friction there that's created is actually around growth and expansion. And then that next day, Mercury trine Pluto. Again, here we are with Pluto coming up again, but this time it's in a great relationship with Mercury, the planet of communication. So if there are things to talk about with kids, with bosses, with significant others that are deep issues, deep themes, this is the day to do it. Because you have Mercury entering Gemini, which is its home sign. So it's very, very happy when it goes into Gemini. And then you have that Gemini influence trining Pluto, which is saying, I'm going to support communicating about change, about power, about control, about transformation, about death, value switches, any of those things that need to be talked about. The 11th is the best day to do it. The only thing that might inject itself a little bit is that you have the moon in Aries. And if you remember Aries, Aries is warrior energy. So it might help you to have the balls to say these things, right? And to bring them out in the open, but just remembering not to be hurtful or too aggressive, because Aries will tend to give you warrior energy and you can take the warrior energy too far. But that's a great day for uncomfortable conversations or conversations where you know change needs to happen. Work, relationships, wherever that is. Okay, and then we'll head into that final week before our next thing, which is last quarter moon is on the 12th. I'm starting to put the quarter moons on our calendar now because I think it's important to kind of cue you up for, you know, the new moon and full moon are important, but these other phases of the moon are just as important because they really do signify some timing that we can align with. Also, I want to mention this month, I'm going to be doing a lot on what moon phase were you born under. Where I'll be sharing a calculator to find that out, because as I'm studying the moon more and more, I'm realizing how important that moon phase is, that actually when it does hit that moon phase again in the month that you were born under is your most powerful time, that full 2 to 3, 4 days, depending, and really gives a lot of insight into our personalities. Like those born under a new moon are very creative. They like new things. Their attention goes fast. They like a lot of variety. So it really kind of is interesting to put that overlay on your sun sign and your rising sign. So the last quarter moon symbolizes, we're starting that on the 12th, symbolizes a week of completion and letting go before the new moon. So remembering that the new moon on the 18th is when we set our intentions and we start the month anew, right? So that final week, the 12th through 17th is when you want to start focusing on what you want to let go of, what you need to complete and put to bed, and to be ready for that new moon on the 18th. So that week, 13th, 14th, not much happening, moons in Taurus, so that's a great time for decorating, cooking, any kind of self-care, comfort, and hosting people. The 15th, we go into Mercury square Saturn. Here's where, you know, that week prior, we've had Mercury in such a happy place, such a great place for conversation, for ideas. And then it's going to square Saturn, where it's going to possibly give a little bit of that depressive feeling. But Jupiter's right there squaring Saturn for over a week. I'm sorry, sextiling Saturn for over a week until the 24th. So that's really constructive. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I think that Saturn influence on the 15 may make us a little depressive, maybe doomy, gloomy feeling, pity party-ish. But we have Jupiter sextiling Saturn for a full week, which I think is kind of coming in on that tail end. We have going that for a whole, that we see at the beginning of the month, Jupiter conjuncting the North Node and sextiling Saturn. So that's ongoing, this kind of dream and manifest, dream and accomplish, get things done. It's kind of the opposite of a Mercury retrograde, is how I feel like these first 3 weeks are. It's kind of like the rocket fueled dream and do, dream and do, dream and plan, dream and build. Whereas Mercury retrograde, it's review, review, wait, plan. This is the doing phase. This is the, especially with the full moon and Sag kicking off the month. So does anybody know why it's called the full strawberry moon? I forgot to talk about that. So it's Native American. The Algonquin tribe especially used to call it the strawberry moon because it's typically when strawberries are blooming, and the other names in Europe are honeymoon because it's when the honey is flowing from the beehives, and also rose moon because it's when the roses are blooming. And June was named after the goddess Juno, which is the goddess that represented marriage. So I find that interesting because we have a lot of, June used to be the most popular month for weddings. I think fall has surpassed it a bit, but Juno represented marriage and fertility and abundance. And I just kind of love how this June month, I love June anyway, because everything's growing and flourishing, even though we're getting this weird dry spell. It's a time for abundance and sharing and traveling and celebrating. And it's time for movement and expansion, coming out of our homes, leaving maybe our neighborhoods and doing things that we normally wouldn't do, say December, January, February. So it's a very abundant month. And a lot of these, up until we hit a few roadblocks on the 15th, this first half of the month all represents that kind of abundance and communication and expansion. So when we get to, and I'll be doing a video for the second half of the month, once we get to the sun in Cancer on the 21st is when we get a little more emotional. There's some things with Chiron and Neptune and squares that are going to get a little choppy for that 20th to 27th week. But again, I think a lot of this is going to be about facing our vulnerabilities, like it says on the 21st, and with Mars trine Chiron and for 5 days, it's going to be about healing our wounds. So there may be some wound licking going on, licking of our wounds after this Venus-Pluto stuff, and some things come up and conversations, and we may have some of that going on by the 3rd week. So we'll get to that later. I'll stick with the first 2 weeks. Are there any questions on anything? You'll have the voids on all of these. You'll be able to see how long the voids last and then the sign it moves into next, just like on the other ones. And our new moon will be in Gemini on the 18th. So that'll be even more, again, on communication. Mercury will be there. The moon will be there. So a lot of emphasis on communicating. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Real quick, because I forget who I told it to. I think I've told it to Emily. For the summer, what I'm going to do is keep our live Zooms on the first Sunday of the month. And on the second Sunday of the month, I'm going to be doing a 2-week video and any other transits that you'll get so that we can kind of have a little more space in the summer. So that's just for this month, July and August. We'll do a few recordings on the later halves of the months. I am also thinking about doing like a point system thing, like almost like if you're able to attend and you do attend, you will rack up points for free 1-hour readings, which are really in depth. And I just think that'd be a cool way to like incentivize people to come so they can discuss and be a part of the meeting. So that may be coming down the pike too. And I think there was something else I was going to, since we still have 20 minutes left, what I'd like to do is quickly talk about, because I won't be talking to you in person on the 18th, quickly talk about where the new moon on the 18th will be in your chart so that you can start thinking about that whole monthly cycle from June 18th to July 18th, what kind of themes are going to be up for you and where you can concentrate your thoughts. So since I know Greg's busy, so we just really have 3 of you, and I'm going to go on the order of the screen. if you're able to access your natal chart. Are you able to, Fran? I'm trying to find my phone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I pulled it up. I forgot to grab. We have half of our life packed, but I pulled it up.
Okay. So where is Gemini in your chart? What house?
Hang on. I have to figure out what Gemini looks like.
It's like the little gateway. It's like 2 lines. How else do I? Oh, like the Roman numeral 2.
Okay. So where is it in my,
I'm trying to look at.
oh, I hate these things. I hate these. I feel like I can't because my lines are not
Yeah. Okay. I see you.
exact. So is it in the second house?
Yep. Yours is
Second and then a little bit into the third, right?
right.
Okay.
So did I write down the degrees? I didn't write down the degrees of Gemini, but it won't be that late. I know that. So yours is definitely second house. So interestingly enough, yours is going to be around your resources. So resources as in your money, what you own, real estate, all of that stuff. So
Perfect.
yeah, your
Huh.
valuables and like what you value. And like I said, it's the house that's ruled by Taurus. So it's about resources, but it's also about self-care. It's a lot about how are you valuing yourself? Like Taurus, is the sign that's like, okay, when the moon's in Taurus, this is the time to like literally go out and smell the roses and, do the nice oils on the skin and light the candles and have the cappuccino and, really pamper yourself. So it's that side of things as well as like your resources and what you own, your material goods.
Okay.
So that's your theme for like June 18th through that next month.
All right. Very well.
Yes. And Emily, you are next. Let's see, Emily. Why don't I just print your guys' chart and have them beside me every time? I don't know why I don't do that. I have to learn as I go. Gemini, where are you? Yours is 9th house, of course. Of course, Emily. Everything about you is 9th house this year. Jeez. However, you do have a bunch of Gemini in the 10th house as well. So, but the new moon will be in your 9th house, which again is travel, expansion, learning, education, all of that stuff. And then heading into career. So that's your June 18th to July 18th. No surprise there. All right, Kelly. Kelly.
I don't even know what we're doing. I got a phone call. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So what I'm doing is on the calendar, you'll see that our new moon in Gemini is on the 18th.
Mhm.
So since we had some extra time, I'm going through everybody's chart and showing where that's going to hit in your chart.
Okay.
So that you have an idea of what theme is up for you from June 18th to about July 18th.
Okay.
Okay, so your new moon in Gemini will be fourth house. Okay, so home and family. So parental stuff again, of course. And remember, Gemini, for all of you, when the new moon's in Gemini, this is about communication. So there'll be a lot more mental activity around those themes, like mental activity, signing papers, signing documents, emails, phone calls, talks, anything that is communication oriented. It's going to expand in that house. For Fran, it's resources and self-care. For Emily, it's adventure, travel, expansion, and knowledge and education. And for Kelly, it's around home, family, family patterning stuff. All of those kinds of themes will be up for you. Or sometimes it's also moving and like redecorating, like recreating space somewhere is fourth house. It can also be where when you talk about the fight or flight that you're feeling, sometimes that's represented there too, like our really deep subconscious reactions to conflict is in the fourth house. So subconscious patterning, because that goes way back into our childhood and home life and family. So that's also represented there. And that feeling of really needing to create personal space comes up under that fourth house as well. But then yours goes into the fun fifth house, which is creativity, art, children, romance, all that stuff. So any questions on those things? And like I said, obviously there'll be other things that come up for the month, but when you're looking at the moon cycle and the impact that that has on kind of your inner landscape for that month, that's what you want to look at first, is where was the new moon for that next month, and that's your themes. So, all right.